Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Show with Jenelle and Leslie. I'm Jenelle Cameron.
Hi there, I'm Leslie Pearson.
And today we are going to answer some of the most asked questions according to a website we found out today.
The answers are going to be from us, but the questions come from there.
Hey, everyone, welcome back. Hope you had a great week, and thank you for tuning in. So let's start with good news today. We had an interest rate announcement where they cut the interest rate by 0.5%, and that was more than I was anticipating.
More than, I think anybody was anticipating.
Mhm.
But yeah, and so that's two larger than lately decreases, two in a row.
Yeah.
I think that there's good reason to have done that. And so I think that's good.
I feel, I know we've talked about this, but I feel very optimistic all of a sudden for 2025.
Well, the thing that buoys me is, what a weird word to say, is the record number of mortgage applications. I keep reading about that, and I think that can't be anything but good news.
Yeah.
That means people are maybe moving a bit beyond thinking about it, and they're planning on acting on it.
I think so, and I think I'm seeing, here's a good story actually. One of these condos that we have listed at One Neighborhood Lane, very cute, 1 bedroom plus den. Anyway, that building, there's been a couple of 1+ den units for sale for a long time. 2 of them have sold in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
One had been on the market for a year.
Why not ours?
They're a little larger,
Okay.
and we've just dropped the price, so I think this is
so now we're priced accordingly. Yeah.
One was on the market for over a year. One was on the market since February.
Wow.
And it just sold yesterday.
Wow. Yeah.
So I think it's good.
Yeah, that is.
I mean,
good.
That tells you something, right?
Well, it's better than bad.
There.
It's not bad news.
It's not bad news. I think we're getting there. I think it's just taking.
Hopefully,
some time.
it's enough to get buyers off the fence in the new year.
I did on our social media today. I did a Q&A about just that exact thing. Like, buyers, get ready. I think it's going to pick up a lot in 2025, and you don't want to get stuck competing.
Right. And maybe it's already ended with this announcement today. We've always said that you don't know when the market's hit the bottom until it's on the way up.
That's right.
And, maybe this announcement is the start of the way up. And so, better to act sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So if you've got your finances in order and there's something on the market that you're keen on, there's no reason to wait because there's going to be fewer people waiting.
And December is such a good time to get a deal.
It's a great time to buy. Great time to buy.
So if you're thinking about it, do it in December. I would definitely be making my move to start looking in December, see what's out there.
Yeah, because you would think that most people, because of the holidays and going away, might just wait until the holidays are over. So if you can be one of the ones that doesn't choose to do that, I think it's all to your benefit.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have a feeling things are going to be really strong for everybody.
Yeah, and sellers, now's the time to be getting your place ready to sell. So have your real estate agent over and talk about what should be done to optimize your time on the market, because it might come sooner than you think. Yeah. Depending on how it goes, we might suggest people list, earlier than we ordinarily would. Yeah. So sellers, take the time now to make sure you're ready. Yeah. And realize that this is good news today, and there's a record number of mortgage applications. So it might be the time to do it. Yeah. We've been happy in recent months that there wasn't a mass inflooding of listings because of what that would have done to sales and prices, really. But now's the time to think about it. If buyers are coming back, and we'll see if they do, but we anticipate they're going to.
Well, sales have jumped 40% 2 months in a row from the year prior, so I can only assume
only indications of good things. Yeah, if you're a seller, if you're a buyer, do it now.
Yeah, do it sooner than later. Trust us. So today we thought we'd do something fun. There's a website called answerthepublic.com, and it's kind of cool because if you put in a topic, whatever the topic is, it will give you the most asked questions on Google and other search engines about that topic. And so I thought it would be fun to see what happens if I put in Toronto real estate, and it gives you 14 of the most asked questions. Now, we won't go over all of these today because we would be there all day. And some of them are pretty repetitive, but I thought it was kind of a fun thing to do.
If they're the most commonly asked questions, let's get at them.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one we talk about all the time, and it is, how is the Toronto real estate market? So if you were meeting someone for the first time today and someone said to you, hey, Leslie, how's the Toronto real estate market? What would you say?
I would say that it's been soft, and some markets more than others, some types of properties more than others, but there's every indication that that softness is firming up.
Yeah.
And that, there's a little bit of a window because it's the end of the year and holidays for buyers to really take advantage of the recent softness. But other than that, we anticipate a really strong 2025.
Yeah.
So I would tell buyers, get in before that actually happens. You have a little bit of wiggle room or breathing space now. Sellers, just like we talked about, get your houses ready.
Yeah.
Because you'll do well in the spring, we think. What do you think?
I would say the exact same thing. And what I found actually most interesting about this question is that if this is the most asked question, people are interested.
Yeah.
People want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Here's the second most asked question, which is interesting. How much do Toronto real estate agents make? Now, who's asking that, do you think? Is that people who want to get into the real estate industry?
Or people already are.
Or people already are? Or is it people who have to pay commissions and are wondering how much we make?
Yeah, so they probably also wonder how realtors are paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your answer to that? Because I think we have slightly different answers to this.
Well,
even though there's only one reality, it's just perspective.
It's perspective. But okay, so if the question is how much do Toronto real estate agents make, I believe the average that a Toronto real estate agent makes, average of the 75,000 realtors, is something like $35,000 a year. Now, that is because of the 75,000 realtors, something like 85 or 90% haven't sold anything this year.
Yeah.
So when you average, so you've got a situation of 10% making a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
And 90% making no money.
That's similar in many industries where like 20% are doing 80% of the work.
That's right.
Something like that across all industries. I was reading about, there started to be this year some significant numbers of people getting out of it in Toronto.
Yeah, this is good for us.
This has been a very hard year for a lot of real estate agents. And so people have realized that they can't do, it isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
But it's very expensive. I mean, people don't want to hear this, and I acknowledge that. Yeah. Nobody needs to care about this. But when you hear see what your realtor is making, you don't realize what the expenses are that agent has to pay, and how it relates to what they actually see. Like, we were just hit with a bill just to be a real estate agent, just to be part of it,
just to exist,
be a member of the boards we must be a member of, and if that alone is $2,000.
Yeah,
just to do what you want to do.
That's it.
And then we all have to play.
That has nothing to do with insurance. It has nothing to do with.
Then you have insurance. Then you have splits with your brokerage. Then you have monthly fees with your brokerage.
It's outrageous.
Anyway, I don't mean to moan about that, because I do think it's a blessing to do this for a living, and that's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah. But
it isn't as much. I guess why I mention that is I don't think it's as much money as people think it is.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember, if you're one of the 90% and aren't making a single penny, and you're paying out thousands of dollars a year, it's pretty rough. Now, of those 75,000 registered realtors, I don't know how many have parked their license, and that's something you can do when you're not actually actively selling, but you don't want to lose your license.
That's become very big this year.
Yes. So
people are taking a step back and maybe pursuing other avenues that will make them money, but not giving up their license entirely.
Yeah.
They call it parking it. But so you should know that we're not salaried employees. We're not employees of our brokerage. We're independent contractors. who must sign up with a brokerage in order to conduct business.
We have to pay them.
Yeah, we have to pay them as well. And we don't get paid unless you are successful in buying or selling a house. So, I've had, and that's when we get paid, and we get paid from the proceeds of the sale of the property.
On closing.
But, if and I have had this happen, I don't know, you probably have, I think every agent has, I have spent months and months and months working with people, and then their plans change.
Yeah.
We get nothing for that.
Yeah.
You only get paid when a transaction successfully closes.
Yeah.
So I think often people don't think of that either. But
yeah, I mean, so really the answer is, who could say?
It depends. It depends on how busy you are and how successful you are for your clients.
Yeah.
And the thing that so I don't begrudge it at all. I think I'm well paid for what I do. I don't think I'm overpaid for what I do. But consequently, I find the ups and downs of compensation, like from annually, just hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Because some years you're busier, and then the next year you flop, and then it goes up and down and up and down. I haven't found the formula for consistency. And that's a lot of the problem of a lot of realtors. You probably have more consistency, but there's going to be, everybody's going to feel a bad year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how it is.
Yeah. What was the second part of that? Is how we get paid? Well, I think we covered it all.
Yeah, I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question is very similar to
that. Hold on. I will say, before we go to the next one, I am surprised the frequency with which I hear from buyers that they're surprised that they don't have to pay me.
If you live in the U.S., you do.
Yeah. Oh.
So that's a whole thing. I don't know how many people are aware of what happened with the National Association of Realtors in the U.S., but they have a very different system now where basically the seller does not have to pay commission to the buyer.
Well, and that's the case here now, but it hasn't taken off.
It's different. Yeah.
And
there it's a law. It's illegal.
And
you're not allowed to talk about compensation. You can be sued. It's a whole bunch of different. It's weird.
And here, I don't think the government or regulatory bodies want us to go in that direction.
Right. They
want full and open and transparent disclosure. So we're if anything, I think heading in the opposite direction as the States.
Yeah. We're trying to hold on to it anyway.
Yeah.
That's been
Yeah,
which is, I kind of also blends into the next question is, what is the Toronto Real Estate Board? And the Toronto Real Estate Board is obviously what, as a realtor, because we are self-employed contractors, you have to belong as a member of TREB, the Toronto Real Estate Board. And they have had very tight control over what happens with the real estate market in the Greater Toronto Area. The Toronto Real Estate Board, by the way, has the largest real estate board in terms of members in the world, which is outrageous, considering we don't have that many people. So we have far too many realtors in a small city, really, because we're not that big. And the fault of that is probably the Ontario Real Estate Association allowing people to take courses and graduate easily, and it's a money grab is what it is. I don't think there's any question about that. And so the Toronto Real Estate Board, they hold your license. You have to belong to them in order to trade real estate in the Greater Toronto Area. And yeah, it's a what can I even say about it? It's a frustrating sort of
so it's just a large organization that just kind of manages the industry, I guess. There's another organization that manages consumer interests in real estate, and that's the Real Estate Council of Ontario. Its sole purpose, I think, really is for the consuming public,
right, which makes more sense.
Right, so we have to belong to that as well, though.
Yeah,
because we have to follow their rules.
Yeah,
and they're safeguarding the public's interest, but we're serving the public's interest. So there's an overlap. So we pay RICO fees, TREB fees, Ontario Real Estate Board fees, and Canada. We talked about this yesterday. Why do we need all these? Why do we have all these layers?
It's outrageous.
What is OREA? What is the Ontario Real Estate Association doing for me?
Nothing.
No.
Well, they're
I get
making you take that course every 2 years, which everybody just fast forwards and doesn't pay attention to in order to say you've completed it. Let's be honest. Does anyone ever watch that thing? I don't think so.
Well, I do.
Yeah, you liar.
Well, you have to now because you can't move to the next page.
No, but I still do whatever I'm doing. And then when I realize
You're
there's a
washing the
lull, I'm
dishes?
like, oh, click.
Oh no, I listen very attentively.
Yes. She's
I've
a
already
good-
done 25% of it.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean?
We have to do it again?
Well, yeah, this is our
This is
next
our
August
year?
is our deadline.
But it's only December.
I've already done one.
Oh, good Lord.
I did the.
I do mine in the days before.
Well, I only did it because there were new rules. You probably don't care about this, people, but there were new rules in the, in the process of selling real estate at the beginning of the year. So I took the big Tressa update.
Wow.
Yeah, at that time.
Excellent.
Haven't used anything I learned ever since because
Right.
it's been a slow year, but I did take it. Anyway, yes, that's what they do.
Well,
so what does the Canadian Real Estate Association do then? It's just layers and layers. If we strip
Yeah.
it down, maybe we need TREB.
it's very
That's
bureaucratic.
it. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so there are many questions kind of asking the same thing, and that is either when will the Toronto real estate market crash? Will the Toronto real estate market crash? What are the crash predictions? And the word crash is used on the regular.
Okay, probably
I can-
just as much as bubble, maybe.
Bubble.
Hear a lot about bubbles.
I haven't heard too many bubbles in this list. I think crash is the word of the
Right,
day.
because we're not in a bubble.
Right. So I feel like these are probably from buyers looking for hope.
Looking to time the market.
Yeah.
Looking for evidence that there's going to be a time to pounce.
Yes.
So my take on it is that I firmly believe that there is nothing as solid as Toronto and surrounding area real estate. There are going to be dips and dives and peaks and valleys, but over the long haul, there is nothing better than owning property in Ontario. There might be times of dips and dives, and I would never call them crashes because they're temporary, often short-lived, and then Toronto always, to date, rebounds quickly and strongly. So, the most we have is, I used the word earlier, softening. And I think we've maybe coming to the end of a period of softening.
Mm-hmm.
But even as hard as it has been and as dismal it's been, I would never have called what we just are going through a crash.
No, not a crash.
No. And so I don't, so my predictions of the future is no crash.
I can't see how anyone would think there would be, just given the situation where we're how many immigrants are coming into the city every year, and we're not making housing quickly enough. Like, everybody has to have a place to live, and we know those people settle in Toronto. So it's just logically doesn't make sense that it will crash. Like, we have so much immigration happening, so few new housing developments.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when it will happen, I just don't see how it could happen.
No, I don't know.
And I would not qualify what's happened this year as a crash. So
Yeah.
if this wasn't, this is about the extent of what I think would ever really happen in Toronto.
Yeah.
Is like a real hard slowdown, but we didn't see, sales drops that I would say fall under the category of crash.
No, absolutely not.
And we saw volume of sales drop significantly. That's not a crash,
No.
because when they were selling, prices were holding.
Yes,
relatively.
They were
Yeah.
holding. Well, then they have.
Yeah, so that's not a crash.
No.
Prices are staying strong.
No, they've been pretty good.
Yeah.
One of the questions people want to know is, why is Toronto real estate so expensive? That's a good question. But I think and this is something that I struggle with, because around the world, all big cities have expensive real estate, and we are no exception.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are almost expecting it to be affordable here because they want it to be.
Yeah, like, why would it be compared to other cities of the same size? Like,
Other major cities in every country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in Canada, we don't have that many major centers. So it's going to be Toronto, big ticket items are going to be in just, maybe 3 locations across the country. And so that contributes to it, I think. You have big cities all over the state, so it might kind of lessen the impact of being a big city. But if there are only 3 big cities in Canada, it's going to be, you're going to feel it more, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this is where, if you live in Canada, chances are this is where you work. This is where business is.
It just is the way it is.
Yeah. This is
and
where
it's
you
always
have to be
been.
every
This
day.
is not a new phenomenon. Toronto always has led the way in Ontario in terms of demand and cost. There's nothing new there because this is where, I mean, it's obnoxious to hear, but it's the truth to say that overwhelmingly in Ontario, this is where people want to be.
Yeah.
Or have to be.
Right.
Both of those.
Right.
I mean.
And the reality is, if you work in Toronto, you have to be close by.
Yeah.
We just don't have the kind of infrastructure that would allow you to.
Yeah, I mean, you can't live
2
in,
hours away.
I don't know, in the Kawarthas easily or
Yeah.
Aurelia easily and work in Toronto. So
No.
you're going to have to, as that happens to more and more people, it's an obvious to me about why it's so more expensive. I hate when people call Toronto a world-class city because I don't think we are.
We're not world class.
No, okay, good. You're on the same page as me there. So, but
we're the largest city in Canada. That's as good as I've given it. Yeah.
And so if you compare us to similar size cities around the world, we're not that expensive.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah.
No, if you look at the largest city
Say you compared
in every
us
country,
to like Chicago, or you compared us to Seattle.
New York.
No, New York's a world-class city, but if you went for the ones that are like
Chicago,
Toronto,
Seattle.
like we are a good deal.
Yeah.
Compared to those.
Well, Chicago's pretty inexpensive, actually.
Inexpensive?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's with
Chicago.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chicago's a deal.
Oh, I'd love to live in Chicago.
I don't understand why real estate there is not more.
I thought it was high. Okay.
No.
Yeah, so I think we've answered that.
Yeah.
In life, my father always said, you get what you pay for. And
yeah, you do get what you pay for.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, I think that, I also think going back to what we said, like, I don't have any expectation that I can afford to live in Hong Kong.
Yeah, right. So where does this come from?
Like if I moved,
Right.
if I moved there, I wouldn't be able to afford to live there.
Right.
Or if I moved to New York, I can't afford to live in New York.
Yeah.
Why do we assume that because you live here, you should be able to afford it?
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
really
in
sure.
the media so much more
Yeah.
lately about how unaffordable it is, particularly for young people. And, I hear those woes, I guess, with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think like the GTA, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
So
we can
maybe
see what
your
happens when the government tries
Yeah.
to interfere.
And maybe
You
your
know?
first home has to be in, what was that place? That we, Essa?
Essa.
Maybe your first home has to be in Essa.
Prices
And you can
really
move to
dropped in
Toronto.
Essa.
But like ultimately, as you inch closer to the core, it's
Yeah.
going to be more expensive. But, buy your first home in Essa and commute.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And on that note, one of the questions was, where should I buy an investment property in Toronto? And so I feel like that's probably a bit of a twist on where should I buy an investment property?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are always thinking about that. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
the goal, right?
Yeah.
Is to own something that you
Yeah.
can rent out.
Yeah, so my view on that is, jump in when you have more experience than I do, so if you have a different take on it. But my view is to buy, the preference number one is to buy something that has more than one unit in it. Ideally 3, but at least 2. And buy wherever your budget allows you to buy that.
Yeah.
And so until very recently, for most people, that would have been outside Toronto. But because lately there's been so many great opportunities in Toronto, I think for the first time in my career, I'm kind of pushing Toronto, or I have been pushing Toronto for that reason. But I say, you got a budget, buy where your purchase of 2 or 3 unit or 4 gets you.
Yeah.
If that's in Windsor or if it's in Peterborough, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I was always kind of against Toronto because I think there just, until recently, has been no way to make money. But now I don't particularly feel that way.
Yeah, all of a sudden prices have come down, rents have gone
now
up.
I
It
think,
seems to
and
make a bit more sense.
Yeah, so that's my take on where to buy.
I agree, and I think we're on the same page. It's interesting. I have a client who has a young 18-year-old kid who reached out to me the other day. Not going to university.
The 18-year-old reached out to you?
18-year-old, not going to university and has been working like for a year, so he's almost 19, and has saved money and wants to buy an investment property.
Smart.
Not to live in, right? And he's like, where should I buy? What should I do? And I'm like, he's just lived at home, saved money for a year, and made enough of a down payment.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. I love hearing stories like that.
Mom needs to start charging him some rent.
Yeah. Or not. Get him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was basically it. If you can believe it, all of the other questions, like when we look at the number one keyword, it was crash.
Yeah.
The second keyword was Toronto, or second key phrase was Toronto real estate 2025. So there's a lot of people who want to know what's going to happen,
right. So
what
thinking
they should
about
do.
it.
They're thinking
top
about
of mind.
Yeah. So I think that's great. I mean, I feel encouraged by that.
Yeah. I
would like to think that people are
starting to prepare. If you're thinking about it, but you haven't yet taken the first step, which is trying to figure out your financing, reach out to us, because we work with a few mortgage brokers and have relationships with some banks. So we'd be able to pass you on to somebody who
that's what you should be doing now.
You should be. So if you're not doing that now, and you're thinking of buying it, like reach out for help finding someone if you need it.
Yeah.
Because that's the first step always.
Always.
You don't want to get your hopes up. You don't want to get excited by starting to see places and then without knowing what you can afford, what's possible.
Exactly.
That's just heartbreaking. Yeah. So do that. That's the first thing to do. And that's what you should be doing now.
Yeah. Great advice.
But record numbers have done it. So maybe everyone who listens to us has done it.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll be here next week, which is the 18th. And then we'll have a couple weeks off for Christmas and New Year's. And then we'll be back after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be here next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We'll be, it'll be interesting because next week, this has happened every time when we've had an interest rate announcement, is nothing happens for the first few days.
We won't know statistically.
But then all of a sudden it starts to pick up.
We'll just have anecdotal feelings about if it's slower or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, because as you listeners know, the numbers come out early in the next month.
Yeah. And it's going to be weird having like this all happening in December, because does that mean people are just going to pause until January, or are they going to listen to us and make a move now?
Right. And the next mortgage announcement, I think, is the end of January.
Yes.
So there's some time.
Yeah.
So if people sit and muddle on it, they might be like delaying until after January 29th.
I think that
we don't know. So next
week,
let's talk about what we've seen.
Yeah.
Since today's announcement.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in as always. So listen, if you can take a moment to rate and review, that would be amazing. Really appreciate that. Second request, if you've gotten this far, is to let other people about our podcast, because we are really loving doing this. We want to keep doing it. We have a great audience and we're trying to build it, and we want to kind of keep going. So we love your feedback. Love it if you share with others. Thank you so much. And third request, I'm full of requests, is make sure you follow us on all of our social channels at the Jenelle Cameron team. And on that note, we will talk next week and wish you happy real estate.
Happy real estate, everyone.